Hey, mama. Costa Havelas, how you doing? Where you from? DK. D, man, if you can, man, make sure. Cool. Cool. Ha. Croc, what it do? Just waiting for my guy to jump on. Marquise, what's good with you? All good, man. Hope school is going good. Hope school is going good. Man, what's happening? Yes, sir. Books and buckets. I see you, Wax. Hit the video request, Wax. Welcome to episode 62 of the Positive Impact Podcast, where we talk about all topics relevant to the game I love. Tonight we have a special episode. I dubbed it the Plan B episode. And my guest tonight is TrueCar Watson. Wax, I don't know if you're on a computer or not, but you got to be on an iPhone or an iPad. If you're on a laptop, it won't work. Onion was good. Let me know, Wax, if you're if you're not on an iPad or a phone, it won't work. You can't do the IG live from a laptop if you're on a laptop. So I see some of my young City Rock boys is on here tonight. You're gonna get a lot of good information tonight. You're on your phone. There you go. Yes,
How's
sir.
that? Is that better?
Yes, we go. There we go. There we go. What's going on with you?
Hey, I'm great, man. How are you? Thanks for
I'm
having me on.
Nah, man, this is major. This is major for me, man. This it's crazy that we even doing this, man. As long as we've known each other, man. So we got a lot to get into. We had a great conversation last week, man, and I got some of my young boys on here right now, and I think this topic particularly is important. And when I thought about it, definitely I thought about you and our basketball, our hoop dreams and where you're at right now. So first thing is first, man, I got to ask about the family and how you guys are doing and getting along during this pandemic.
Yeah, we're doing great. Thanks for asking. I guess even in before that, just thanks for having me on. I know it took 61 episodes to make this happen, but I'm happy to be on and just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing for in your world right now to help youth. It's as important as ever. So much love to you for that. As far as our family, we're doing great. I mean, it's been crazy. It's been a crazy year for us. We, all of us born and raised in the Northeast, coming across the country to Southern California has been a massive change. I tell you, the weather is as good as it's, as people told us it was going to be, and actually better. You really can't understand it if you're from the Northeast. So that's been great. It's been a great experience. We're learning, we're bonding as a family. So I wouldn't look back and make any changes. We're doing okay.
No doubt about it, man. So obviously, when we talk about the game of basketball is what brought us together. You know what I mean? And taking us a lot of different places. But as I get, as I work with student athletes, for the longest time now, and as I'm continuing to work with student athletes, I think it's more important now more than ever that student athletes look beyond the sport, beyond basketball, beyond football, whatever sport that they're playing, and really look down the line and really start to figure out. We need to really start talking to our young people about what's the end goal. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
a lot of kids now think short term, and we need to start changing the mindset a little bit and start talking about the long term goal. So first and foremost, man, because the game brought us together, we got to talk about your basketball journey. So tell me, like, how you fell in love with the game of basketball, and then when it became a goal of yours to play in college, and how you made it to college.
Yeah. I mean, it started, I'm from a small sort of rural, humble town in Connecticut. Grew up with a group of kids that still some of my closest friends to this day. And we just played. We played outside. That's what you did back then, right? When we all get together, we reminisce. It's about, oh man, it used to be different when we were younger. We would always be outside. We'd play wiffle ball and pickle. It, kill the guy with the ball. And,
Yeah.
all sports. So I kind of fell in love with sports as a whole. At the same time, a lot of us were single parent households. My mom worked. She was putting herself through school. Amazing, wonderful foundation, parent, supportive, positive influence in my life. I won't talk too much about her because I'll probably cry, but at the same time, a lot of after school time at the YMCA, and I think that's where I really fell in love with basketball. Quite often there were tons of people there. They were always playing. I would join in the games. Sometimes it was quiet and there'd be one or two kids there, and I'd be on a hoop by myself, just shooting and playing. And, and I started to excel at it. And, as you become better at something, it's self-reinforcing. And, so I fell in love with it early on. I consistently played throughout middle school, high school. And, ultimately when it came time, I had a pretty good, high school career. And, but it was from, a small school that didn't have a lot of scholarship players coming out of it. There wasn't a lot of credibility. And so I was in that, Division III, Division II cusp. And that's when really, basketball started translating into opportunity in terms of kind of decisions that I needed to make for my future, right? And I was looking at I had a couple of Division II offers, weren't the best academic schools, a couple of D3 situations that were really good academic schools, and worked on the financial aid to make it, comparable to to Bryant, where I ultimately went, where initially they had offered me a half scholarship. I really, I'd gone on a visit there. I loved the school. I kind of knew I wanted to get into business. So that was, a fundamental part of my decision. But at the same time, I got a great feeling when I was on the campus. I really liked the coach. I fell in love with the team. That was the most important thing for me, meeting the guys on the team. There were some folks that I really connected with, and I knew right away that those were people that I wanted to be around and surround myself with, and ultimately build lifelong relationships. And so I ultimately chose Bryant.
So let me backtrack for a second, because you said something really meaningful and total opposite of me. So you said that you knew that you wanted to go into business, where I think a lot of us with hoop dreams, we just want to go to college to hoop. You know what I'm saying? Because, our plan after playing ball is to play ball for money. So, maybe we don't think we're going to the NBA, but listen, I'm going to get somewhere overseas. Like, you know what I mean? But you knew already, I want to get into business. So let me choose a school that can help me in that area. So you chose a school kind of for your plan B, where as for me, my two choices came down to a Division II college that was ranked top 5 in the country, and then a Division II school that I probably should have went to, but they weren't good. Well, I got to go to the top 5 school because I'm so used to winning. So I put basketball before my academics, and there was no plan B for me. But you already kind of had laid a foundation for your plan B by at least knowing what you wanted to do. So, you go to Bryant, you know what I'm saying, and you have a wonderful career at Bryant. Obviously we met through a mutual friend, Jerome Greer, there. And, so we spent a lot of time together. And, so talk about those 4 years of college, how you balanced basketball and the academic work, and still fulfilling your dreams about what you want to do, and how that manifested itself.
Yeah, definitely bring me back to that. I want to make one point on what you were saying earlier about sort of creating a criteria for your decision for college. You were kind of singular in your criteria, right? You just wanted to go to the best basketball school. I think when we're talking to kids now, it's like, hey, make sure you understand what's important to you and make sure it's broad, right? And list out that set of criteria. Like, do you want to be close to home, or are you willing to leave home and go a few states away? Do you want a big school? Do you want a small school? Do you kind of have a sense of what you're interested in? Is it science and math, or is it economics, or you don't know yet? You want to do more liberal arts. Having a plan and kind of creating that criteria to list out and then rank all that stuff as you think about it is really important to making sure that you make the right decision. For me at Bryant, I mean, I certainly, was figuring it out along the way, like many, young kids are. And, the path, I think part of it is you don't necessarily know the path, right? And as I think part of what I'm looking to do as I pass things on generationally to my kids is to make sure I have a lot of knowledge about the different paths that you can take so that I can help them think through it. Um, but I went to Bryant and first year you kind of do general studies. I was always, education was always important to me. That was something, my mom set really high expectations for me around. And I always looked at it as, if you're a competitor, if you like to compete, if you like to win, and you do that in basketball and you work really hard in basketball to compete and win, why not? Why don't you do that in other areas, right? Why don't you want to be? Why don't you apply that work ethic and you see the success you're having in basketball? Do that with school, right? Do that with taking care of yourself. Do that in your relationships. Do that across a broader spectrum so that you're really well-rounded skill set that you develop. And I remember, I'll give you a quick story. With my freshman year in college, I was, I think we were in the cafeteria and I was talking to a friend of mine about what we were going to go do for that summer. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go, scoop ice cream for my uncle. I think that, I'm getting a raise this year. I'm going to be making like $2.80 an hour. It's going to be great. And I was like, yeah, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm going to work in the finance department at, I think it was Hamilton Standard, some big, big organization. I was like, he's like, and I'm making, $10 an hour. I was like, $10 an hour? How are you doing that? He said, well, I got an internship through this program. And that was just, a light went off for me. And I went down, did some research on the program. I got, my name in there. It was, there were certain academic requirements. You had to go in a bunch of interviews. After you made it through that first phase, they had a number of companies that were participating. And I was looking through the list. And again, you don't know a lot about who these companies are as a freshman in college. And one of the companies on the list was Arthur Andersen. And I was going through the list with my roommate at the time, and he's like, my brother actually works there, and that is one of the best accounting firms in the world. And I was like, that's all I needed to hear. I was like, I'm in. I want this. I talked to his brother. I got, as much information as I could about it. I prepared for it, and I ended up getting that internship. And then I interned there for each of the summers that I was in college. Again, a commitment to a path where I knew that was going to pay off, down the road in the future when I graduated. And ultimately I had a job ready for me when I came out of college.
Absolutely. And once again, the differences, while we both had hoop dreams, the differences in our paths, again, no internships for me, like I chose sports management because sports management was going to keep me eligible. You know what I mean? And I think I think my way of thinking about making my college choice is how a lot of kids view it now. You know what I mean? Like it's about basketball. And it's about getting to 4 years of basketball. And, the idea is to get through with a college degree and debt free. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the main goal. Whatever happens after that, like that's a great start. No loans, no student loans, and a college degree in your hand. That's a great start. So you leave Bryant, 1,400 points. I know if I'm wrong, you're gonna correct me. Did I take away 200 points from you?
Oh man, over 1,500, man. Come on.
Over 1,500. Okay, I know how that goes.
Yeah, I think you're thinking about Jerome. That's what you must be thinking about.
So a great college career, and in a degree in hand, and that's super important to our families when we were growing up. Not a lot of people in our families had college degrees when we came out. So I think that's super important, and I think that's the utmost important thing is, using basketball and that free that free money as a tool to get a leg up. Like we have to make sure that we at least do that, and I want to make sure that I get that across to the student athletes. And so you said like by interning, by the time you left Bryant, you had a job waiting for you. So talk about that, because the foundation was laid, like you said, in that dorm room your
Yeah.
freshman year for 3 years later on. So talk about having that job waiting for you and how gratifying it was when you got the actual offer, because a lot of kids don't get offers straight out of college.
Yeah, I mean, it was hugely important for me. I think, some of it is again, it's knowing the path, right? And when you find those opportunities, you still have to walk it, and it takes effort. If you go into it and you say, I've been just navigating my way through high school, I'm going to do the same thing in college, and I'll figure it out along the way. That's not the right approach. You got to start preparing now, and the way you prepare now is you create good habits, right? And I don't care who it is. A lot of times people look at other people that have been successful and they kind of pick apart why they're successful. Oh, they had an advantage, they had an opportunity. In some cases, that's true. But in most cases, successful people work hard. They work really, really, really hard. And that's the foundation. And I think for your students to start that now on a smaller scale and develop really good habits around it, that'll follow you through to college. I think for me, the internships weren't easy. It was an hour drive each way. I remember, I had to drive an hour to this internship, hour plus, park 20 minutes away because, the lot that was $7 was too much. I was going to the $3 lot, and that was an extra 10-minute walk. So by the time I got to the office, I was full sweat because it's a summer internship. I got, my one of two suits that I had, so it was a lot of work, and it was a big commitment. But ultimately, I could see ahead to, hey, this is a multi-year internship, right? I'm learning. I'm getting a competitive advantage against everybody else that's chilling for the summer, and it was really important as from a foundation standpoint to have a good, solid job coming out of college that was tied to my major. I guess I tied my major to that, really, right? Once I got this, I said, okay, I got some exposure to accounting. I really liked it. And I used that to help determine my path in college. What are the classes I'm going to take to build around that? And then ultimately that became a stepping stone for, just continuing to progress and take next steps in my career.
No question about it. So this next phase now, I want to call it the climb now, right? Because we all have to start somewhere, right? And so you started off as an intern. I'm sure it was entry level when you first got there. Now the real grind starts, right? So some of us get comfortable and like we're good, but now that climb, you start working, and things like showing up on time. I tell kids all the time, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. So all these things come into play. Wearing a suit, everything like that, because you don't ever know who's watching you, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing on the court. It's the same thing in the real world. You never know who's watching you, so you have to carry yourself. I talk to these student athletes about branding ourselves. So now Noel Watson is a brand now. You know what I mean? At Arthur Andersen. So talk about the climb, man, because obviously you've done some great things, and I want to pay respect to all of them. But talk about that. Talk about the floor of the climb.
Yeah, I mean, at first, I think you hit on a super important, point. You're always being evaluated. You're always evaluating what's around you, and you're always being evaluated. And basketball will open up a lot of doors for the kids that you work with in terms of getting into networks. But at the same time, you need to carry yourself well, because you never know who could be impactful in your future. And the outcome of that is determined by how you treated them, how they saw you carry yourself. Is she hardworking? Is she kind? Is she supportive of her teammates? Is she smart? And so, starting at Arthur Andersen, for me, it was really just establishing my foundation of kind of business understanding. I really got, my technical competency up in terms of the accounting skill set. And it's a grind. You have to be there on time. You have to work hard while you're there, and you have to treat it as an opportunity to learn and grow, not just a job that you're trying to get your 2-week paycheck from, right? And if you treat it that way as an opportunity to learn and grow, then that opens the door to other things. And so after, a few years at Arthur Andersen, I got my CPA, as a certified public accountant. And then I leveraged that to start working in some technology startups in the Boston area. Again, very sort of broad-based jobs where, I call it the chief cook and dishwasher, right? Like I was wearing a lot of different hats. I was doing a lot of different things, but at the same time, it was giving me exposure to all these things and broadening and deepening my learning. Ultimately, I ended up at a company. It was a startup company, but growing. Many of you may have heard of it, called TripAdvisor. And we went through, just a dynamic, long period of growth with that company. And my goal there was to make sure I was growing as fast as the company, right? That the company didn't get ahead of me in any type of way. And I was continuing to develop my skills. If there was a hand-raising opportunity, who wants to take on this project? Yeah, I do, because I'm going to learn a lot. Who wants to expand their role and add this responsibility? Who wants to manage this group? I'll do it. I'll do it. And it takes a lot of work, but at the same time, you're learning, and that experience ultimately makes you more valuable. And that's how you start to make more money over time, and you get bigger jobs and bigger roles. And so that, to me, that's that compounding effect of hard work and effort and focus on developing yourself over time.
No question about it. So now you're in this TripAdvisor role. You say you're growing as rapidly as the company. You're growing personally as well. Your career is growing. So before we jump into this next step, which for me is super huge, I want to break down like why you're in your role at TripAdvisor. And I want to touch on a few things. And number one is I want to touch on with the kids how important networking is. Yeah. Right? So we say we're constantly being evaluated. We're constantly meeting different people. You don't know when you're going to meet meet certain people. Sometimes you know what these people are about. You kind of know what you're getting into. But sometimes you don't know the person that you're meeting can really open up some doors and blow these doors wide open for you. And so sometimes it's about not what you know, it's about who you know. And so talk about the importance of networking, shaking hands, looking people in the eye, and looking the part.
Yeah, I mean, that's all a super important part of it. I think, basketball opens a lot of those doors for you, whether, you're on the company basketball team, right? And you're meeting coworkers through that and developing relationships. I was actually fortunate enough to be part of a networking group in Boston where it was some very, very successful Ivy League business school graduates that had just had huge success in business over the years, and they were looking to give back to younger professionals that were up and coming, that were basketball players. Ultimately, it was built around basketball. Right. They had a group. They played basketball twice a week, 6 o'clock in the morning. And getting to network with those people was hugely important for me. And it wasn't even about leveraging them for a job or anything like that. Some people, were able to do that. For me, it was just around being able to talk to them and find out how they think. Why are you successful? What do you do? Where do you work? How do they make money? How do you think about the world? And it's just when you surround yourself with people that are thinking like that, it helps shape your lens and your perspective as well. So yeah, networking, and I think when it comes to the office, there's networking outside, and you're networking everywhere, right? But your friends, your acquaintances, other professionals outside of your organization, within your company, it's really important to get to know people across different functions of the business. For me, some of a few folks that have been the most important in my network are people that I've worked for in the past, people that have been my bosses. And so it was important to be a hard worker, to do a good job, to be very supportive and helpful to them in their role, so that they look at you as someone where they get a phone call further down the road. Hey, I know you through this and this. There's Noel Watson. He's talking about this opportunity. Yeah, I know him. Man, that guy is a hard worker. He's a team player. He's collaborative. He'd be a great addition to your team. Right. And I say team a lot because that's what it is when you're in the business world and you don't realize it. And this is important for these kids to know is, a lot of what I rely on in business, I learned through sports, right? It's all about team-based sports. I mean, I learned to win, to lose, to get knocked down, to stand back up, how to work with your teammates toward achieving a mutual goal, how to be a leader, how to step aside and let someone else be a leader. All you can go on and on and on. All these things translate into leadership and having a really high EQ. We talk about IQ, which is your intelligence quotient, right? But your EQ, your emotional quotient, you understand what motivates people, right? Why do they act a certain way? What motivates me? How do I get up for a game? How do I get up for my work day? Some people need a kick. Some people need a pat on the back. And you learn a lot of that through sports. And it's just so relevant if you leverage it and you embrace it in the business world.
Nah, no question about it. So that piece is networking. So that piece right underneath it, that piece underneath it is, when you're, once you're networking, right? You said some of your best references was people that you worked for in the past, right? So with my student athletes, like, respect for your teachers is truly important, right? Because you're going to have to fill out a college application and you're going to have to get references from your teachers. And if you're a jerk to your teachers, like, you're going to need these people. And it's easy to burn bridges because you think you're going to another level. And sometimes it's like, I wish I didn't burn that bridge. So talk about that, like, with references, and even like when you move on from a TripAdvisor to to like where you're at right now, it's important that you have that blessing because of everything that you gave to that company, so that they're giving you a clean, a good word with the next person. So talk about how important that is to not burn bridges, so that you have those references, because we're all going to need references at some point.
Yeah, you never know who you're going to need. I think of it as like a bank account, right? You can make if you make deposits in a bank account, and you make deposits and investments in people and in relationships, and it's got to be authentic, right? If you care about people, if you care about their well-being, right, you're going to be able to make withdrawals from that as well. And you'll have, if you invest in your teacher and your performance in class, then that teacher's they have way more that they can give to you than you can give to them, right? And so you'll actually, in that equation, it'll work out better for you. And I'll give you a recent example. For me, I just joined the board of directors of a company called Zynga. A lot of you play, some of the games that they have, Words with Friends, CSR2. I mean, it's a $10 billion company. And one of the key people that was making the decisions around the board, I didn't know this till afterwards, knew somebody that I work with currently, and made a phone, went to high school with them, right? And said, hey, Sally, what do you think of Noel Watson? And if I hadn't treated that person right in our relationship in a professional way, and they didn't have good things to say about me, I never would have gotten that opportunity. And it's because a lot of times it comes down to a single person. So it's just a general way to say you gotta invest in people. You will get a return on that investment. It'll happen over time. It develops good habit, and habit just builds on itself. And again, you're always being evaluated.
No question about it. And so I want to talk about pace as well. And it's funny, like, we're talking about all this stuff and how they parallel to sports. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I want to talk about pace, right? So some people get to their destination quicker than others, right? So you know, maybe you've had a straighter path, you know what I mean, to your happy place of employment than I have. But we're still both very happy with what we do.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
impacting kids in my own way. I found what I love to do, what makes me feel good inside, and using my own experiences to give back to the youth today. But I
And what I
also
love
want,
about that, I'm gonna cut you off real quick because I know you got a question, but I'm so happy for you in that. And what I love about that is, um, once you recognize that's what makes you happy, um, you've built a plan around it, right? You are now creating more building blocks to grow it, to put yourself in a position where you can be the best for the kids that you work with. And it's really about, having that plan. So now that you put a plan in place, you're more likely to action it. And then the outcome of what you're going to achieve at the end of the day is going to be enormous. It's going to be immeasurable in terms of the impact that you're having on a large number of kids in your community.
thank you. Nah, no question. And so it's easy to say, like, these kids that we're trying to talk to today, you know, there's a lot of lessons for you to learn, right? They're 16, 17 years old. You guys got so much to learn, but here we are, 46, 47 years old, and you never stop learning. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
as long as you're breathing, you're never too old to learn. You understand what I'm saying? And so, like you said, like, so it might go over some people's head, like, oh, he's on the board. I thought he was the CFO at this thing. So we got multiple things going on. I'm a dean of students at a school, but then I have my non-for-profit on the side, and then I'm doing this academic advising stuff with my non-for-profit. So it's like, no, like, you have to continue to grow, but at your own pace. Like, you can't worry about how fast somebody else is getting theirs. You know what I mean? It's not about how you start, but it's about how you finish.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said a lot of things there. I think, if you surround yourself with people that are having success as well, it's a barometer, right? It's not a competition, but it helps. It helps to be around people that are action oriented because it's going to make you action oriented. And yeah, we're old. I thank you for pointing out we're older now and wiser. And so, a lot of credit to your kids that are listening now that are taking the time to join this call because they're a step ahead of, kids that aren't focused on listening to people that have knowledge that can pass it down and help them be better. And so, I'll give you a quick example that just comes to mind on that. When I was really young, I don't know, it was fourth or fifth grade. There was an assignment on the history of our town, right? Like it was, town history week, and it was what was the name of this building before it was a movie theater? Who was the first mayor? That kind of thing. What were the sidewalks made out of? And I'll make a long story short, but ultimately, a friend's grandmother who had lived in the town for a long time, spoke with her, gave me all the answers, had it all because she lived there, right? She'd been through it. That's real experience, and that's, it's clarity, it's incontroversial kind of evidence. And so she told me that the sidewalks were made out of wood, and the name of this building was that and that. And I got into class, and they were like, Robert, what's the answer to number one? And Joey, what's the answer to number two? Noel, what were the sidewalks made out of? And I was like, there's no way sidewalks were made out of wood. That just doesn't make any sense, right? And so I said cobblestone.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, the answer is wood, but thank you, thanks for trying. And I was like, it's probably a bad story, but I'm trying to capture the fact that people, as they get older, they have a lot of experience and knowledge, and it's always a generational challenge. Kids that are young, they don't want to listen to older folks, but if you can find that kid that does and uses that as leverage, you will springboard yourself forward faster and ahead of so many others in terms of achieving the goals that you set out for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And so, and I think, when you're talking about who
Yeah,
you
you were talking
surround
about
yourself
the
with.
CFO and the board and all that. I think.
Yeah. So when you talk about like surrounding yourself with the right people, right? So, our core, we have very supportive wives of, of what we do. And, that's our basic, what we, what makes us go. Right. So, and you have, you got two beautiful children, and I have my son. So that's our engine. Right. So that's first and foremost. And then, like you said, like, you surround yourself with people with like wisdom, and, you surround yourself with people who have more than you, that you can attest to, some people that are doing it the same as you. And then there's some people that might not be doing as good as you, that you can kind of pull along and give the knowledge that you have back to them. So, I want to talk about not being stagnant, right? You got a great job, right? Your family, like you said, everybody grew up in the Northeast. I'm doing great. I'm at TripAdvisor. I'm doing well. We got a good life. But then this opportunity comes, and it's not the first opportunity that you've ever gotten. You know what I'm saying? But you had a decision to make to leave the Northeast for the right opportunity. And that's also what we talked about with choosing colleges. It's not just choosing a college, it's about choosing the right college. And so the quote unquote right opportunity came across your email. Talk about that experience, and like you said, like, being comfortable at TripAdvisor and turning down other opportunities and stuff until this opportunity came.
Wow, man, you just covered so much good stuff, and thank you for bringing up Tamiko and the kids. I mean, Tamiko has been just a huge factor in my personal success. And we've been married for 15 years. We've been together a lot longer than that. You were, you were there at the beginning, and just having somebody that that pushes you, that challenges you, that's there to pick you up and give you confidence when you are struggling or you are lacking confidence. She's been my rock, and the most important part of the people that you can choose to surround yourself with. As far as that decision, again, it's kind of what I talked about earlier. We collectively, she and I, took a lot of time thinking about that particular decision. There was a lot leading up to it in terms of how I thought about my career when I was with TripAdvisor. And I talked about the hand raising and expanding my role and taking on additional responsibilities. It was all, part of a plan to develop a resume that ultimately would allow me to take the next step that I was considering at that time, right? And so we did the same thing. I mean, it was a tough decision. We were born and raised in that area. We're super close with friends and family, so a lot of roots there. Ultimately, going through all the criteria, we just thought it was a huge professional opportunity. It was an opportunity for our family just to try something different. We kind of put it in that, the YOLO category of, hey, we can be in this one spot for the next 20 years, but we can try something big and try something different and see where it takes us. And hopefully it brings us closer together as a family and create some wonderful memories. So there was certainly a lot of preparation, a lot of consideration, and ultimately, made the decision to stretch the elastic and try something different. And haven't looked back since. And even when we made that decision, we already started planning on, okay, well, what doors does this open up, right? If you move from TripAdvisor, where you're in this particular role, and you move to TrueCar, and you're in a different role, what does that do in terms of a year from then, or 2 years, or 3 years from then? And started to think about those opportunities, and you kind of manifest your destiny in that situation, where having a plan again. And she believes a lot in this, right? And she pushes me toward that all the time. And like, send out good vibes, create a plan about where you're going, and you'll realize it. And there's so many examples of where that's happened for us over time, where we wanted something, we thought about it, we visualized it, and then we worked towards it, and ultimately achieved it. So it's part of I think that's the early thing for these guys is, start thinking about a plan, write down the different components of it, write down the different criteria, how you're assessing it, write down the ideas that you have and what you need to do to get there. It could be all, basketball at this point, but I would challenge them to think broader than that, right? Think basketball, but think education. It's going to be so important. We all know the numbers. I'm sure you've done this in all your presentations to them, and it's not very many people that make the NBA or even go overseas and make $1 million a year. So to the point of your title, like what is your plan B, and how do you start preparing for that early enough, where again that early stage lever helps to compound over time and puts you to even greater heights.
Nah, no question. And then, I think the key with that is understanding, like, you can have your hoop dreams, what I mean, and have them. I'll never take a hoop dream away from anybody, what I mean? Like, if it works out, great, and it does work out for some. But for a lot, it doesn't. And, you built a great plan B, you're living a great life, you have your family, you got kids, and, you're doing some incredible things that have nothing to do with basketball. The only thing that had to do with basketball was basketball helped me get my degree, which is what it should be used for. You used it as the tool to get to where you are right now, but you had to intern, you had to network, you had to wait for the right opportunity to get here. But basketball, those lessons that you learned playing basketball and other sports growing up are helping you now in your plan B. So you never lose it. You never lose it. You know what I mean? You never lose the sense of being an athlete, so to speak. You carry those lessons with you. Like you said, wins and losses, getting knocked back out, how to handle adversity, right? Because we've been injured before, right? And we played on some crappy teams, but you still got to go out and give it your best. You know what I mean? And you don't transfer because you're not getting playing time or whatever. You work harder and everything. And there's so many lessons that we can parallel real life with sports. And I just wanted to get that message across to these kids out here today and to our parents, man. And
I just wanted to say, I wanted to riff on that just quickly in terms of, I had a lot of opportunities as well. I mean, this wasn't all me, right? I had as I said, a mother that loved me to death and gave me every opportunity that she could. I had great friends along the way. My mom's from a really big family. She's one of 13 kids. That extended family has been a huge support system for me over the years and given me opportunities. And so, and helping me to see kind of what's around the corner, right? And think ahead. And so if they don't have that, right? And they do, because they're working with you, thankfully, there's programs. I was going to say, there's programs out there that'll help them. And that's what you provide. But find that, if you don't have it right now, find that person that can provide that to you. Find, your Terrell Dozier, find that coach, find that teacher, find that program where they can help provide that support system and help you think ahead, because it's absolutely vital.
Nah, no question about it, man. So we're gonna get ready to wrap this thing up. But I gotta say, man, I'm extremely proud of you and everything that you're doing, and I appreciate all your support that you have for me and what I do. And I think this episode is powerful, and I can't wait to get this out there to the masses, to the kids who couldn't log on tonight, to the parents who couldn't log on tonight. But I want to put this out, like, this is such an important subject that doesn't get spoken about enough. You know what I mean? And so it has to be spoken about. And I'm glad, like I said, like we were just catching up on a phone conversation, and it manifested itself into this, man. And I appreciate you taking the time out, man, to come over here and kick it with an old friend, man.
Hey, I love what you're doing, man. I appreciate the time, and anything I could do to help, let me know, man. I love you, man.
Nah, I love you too, man. Tell your family I said hello, man, and we'll talk soon.
All right, I will. Take care.
Yes, sir.